Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining me for another episode. I am your host, Michael Rubino, and today's special guest is Taylor. Taylor, thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to be here with me and share your story.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
So, I think, for a lot of people, getting sick in the home is this like weird thing. Unless it's happened to them, they don't really quite understand it.
hmm
And maybe you didn't quite understand it at first either, right? So when you first started not feeling well, tell me a little bit about what you were kind of going through and how long it took for you to realize that it was air quality as opposed to, some other illness.
Right. Yeah. I just graduated high school. I mean, I graduated with a 4.0 as co-valedictorian. School was everything to me. I loved it. I went off to Arizona State on almost a full ride for academics in a biomedical science major. And I was an aspiring cardiothoracic surgeon. And I got put in a dorm with mold that I now know had mold. And within a month, I was failing out of classes, struggling with mental health, and to the point where I was suicidal because I didn't know what was wrong with me. And I felt like I was literally going crazy and I didn't know why. So that's kind of the rundown of how I discovered it. My mom is more involved in the health world. So she kind of came to me and she was like, I think that there's mold. There was some visible mold within the dorm, but we believed that it was probably, I went back to the dorms the year after they had shut down for COVID. And so everything had gotten started back up in the dorms. And we think that that's maybe when some things had an opportunity to grow in the air vents and that kind of thing. But she kind of told me about that. And she said, I think there might be mold. So I went to the people at the front office and I was like, I think you guys have mold. Everyone in this building is sick. I'm sick. And there's something that's not right. And they kind of pushed me off to the side for a long time. And after about 2.5 months of being in the dorm, my mom finally pulled the plug and said, you can't be in there anymore. Like I was a walking like medical mystery of just everything that was wrong with me. And we didn't know why. And so I moved out of the dorm and lived in a hotel for a few months after that, until I got an apartment. But that's kind of how we discovered it. And then a few months after I'd moved out, there was articles that came out about mold being in the dorms and that kind of thing. So
Yeah,
yes.
that's incredible, that just the story of what you went through going from 4.0 to failing out of classes, not understanding what's going on.
Yeah.
The thing that kills me, I don't know if you know, but I have a website called moldu.org that
Mhm.
highlights this problem in college universities, because we go to these places to become educated, and
Yep.
we obviously need to be healthy while
hmm
we're getting an education. Or as you can see, what happens to that is, if you are not healthy, how does that affect your ability to learn in school? How does that affect your ability to get good grades and to build a career, right? Because this is the starting point of you building yourself a career.
Exactly.
And we fail our students
Yep.
in this endeavor when we can't provide healthy places for them to live.
I
So
could not.
it's so I feel for you, and I'm really sorry that you went through that. Did you notice an immediate difference when you moved out of the dorm and lived in that hotel?
I would say within 2 weeks of me moving out, I mean, I had a whole list of sicknesses. I had upper and lower respiratory infections, including bronchitis. I had reactivation of EBV. I had a sinus infection. I had recurring conjunctivitis. It was all at once.
Wow.
So it wasn't like a here and there type of thing. And I was like, had a cough where I would be throwing up in bushes before class. So about 2 weeks after moving out, the physical symptoms subsided. And that's when I started realizing the internal symptoms that were still there. And even to this day, I still struggle a lot with like memory and I get a lot of fatigue still. I've currently been seeing a doctor, so I've been getting better. And she diagnosed me with an IgG immunodeficiency, and so I've been a sick kid my whole life, but it was definitely very elevated when I got into that dorm, and that's why we were like, there's just something that's it's was to the point where I couldn't sleep at night and I couldn't wake up in the mornings and I couldn't because my body just felt so off. And so after moving out, all the physical symptoms definitely subsided. like quickly-ish. But then since then, I think it's been about 2 years since I moved out of the dorm completely. And I still struggle with a lot of the internal symptoms that may not show on the outside. And that's definitely still a hard road to recovery from that.
Sure.
So, yes.
I would imagine some days are better than others.
Yep. Yep. It's definitely an on and off. Some days I wake up and it's just like I'm just so fatigued that I just want to sit in bed all day and do nothing. And then some days I'll have random bursts of energy. And so it's definitely been more, I don't want to say more mental than anything, but mental definitely plays a lot in it, because it's to go from a semi-healthy human being to someone who can't memorize anything, can't remember anything, can't get out of bed in the morning. It was definitely a struggle. And I think that that's where a lot of people don't realize, like, when you are exposed to mold, like, it's not, people are not aware enough of it and what it does. And not only the medical symptoms it has, but how that affects your mental health then, because it's just such a interesting recovery. And I feel like a lot of doctors aren't very aware of it. And I went to many doctors when I was down in Arizona, and they were all just kind of like, we don't really know what's wrong with you, so we're going to throw this antibiotic at it or this antibiotic at it. And it was just making me crater even more. And so I think that that was definitely the hardest part, was understanding that not every day is going to be amazing, but at least I'm out of the mold now and I'm on the road to recovery.
Yeah, what's interesting about antibiotics is it kills good bacteria and bad bacteria,
Exactly.
right? Which disrupts your gut.
Yep.
And so, when it's like anytime I'm sick, I go to the doctor, right? They're like, let's prescribe you an antibiotic. I'm like, well, do we have a bacterial infection? Well, no, but we might. Like,
Exactly.
I don't, this seems pretty viral to me, but it's like, yeah, it could be, but we should take the antibiotic just in case.
Yep.
It's like, but we're going to kill off a bunch of good bacteria too.
Right.
Right. And so we don't think about that. And the thing about mold is really interesting is it already disrupts your gut. So
Yep.
you start throwing antibiotics on top of that. And I don't think that's going to be a good solution.
It's a train wreck. And I think that, especially being a sick kid my whole life, I mean, with the immunodeficiency just being found, but they said I've had it my whole life. And they said, I've always struggled when I go to doctors because they always want to throw antibiotics at things. And antibiotics I've always had horrible reactions to, because of the reason you said, it kills the good and the bad bacteria. So it's like you're left with not much bad bacteria at the end, but then you don't have any good bacteria to nurse you back to health. And so I think, especially when I was going through all that, when they were throwing antibiotics at it, it was like I didn't want to take them, but I was like, I just want to feel better. That's
Yeah.
all I want. And so it was hard, because it was like, it was the fight of, I don't know what to do. And I feel like, again, doctors are not super aware of it. So when I would
Right.
go in and would say, I think there's mold in my dorm, they would just be like, oh, okay. Well, what else is wrong? And I was like, it was hard to get people and doctors, especially, to listen to me and understand what was happening, because they weren't getting the whole picture of what was actually happening. So,
And you are not the only one. I know people listening to this right now are thinking like, Taylor, I'm with you. I went through the same thing. I've
yep,
had people on here that have gone through 40, 50 different doctors looking
yep,
for answers, all of them. I mean, you can't even imagine. I don't even know
right,
if I could find 40 doctors. But
yeah,
you get 40 different doctors and in a local area, all telling you, like, I don't know, can't be mold though, because I've never read
right,
anything about that. It's one of the most understudied things that we could ever have that impact the human body, which is just amazing to me.
exactly. And I think that was the hardest part, was that it was like getting people to try to understand where the root of the problem was, because I was like I said, like, go back to the mental health part of it, is it's hard to be struggling that much and to be that sick. And you go to a doctor who your whole life has been supposed to help you and heal you. And they're like, yeah, it's not the mold, but we're not really sure what it is yet. And so I think that was the hardest part for me in that time, was being so physically unwell and struggling mentally, because nobody was giving me answers or helping me understand what was wrong with me. And so it definitely drove me a little bit crazy, because I just didn't know really what was happening.
Yeah.
So,
I want to talk about the mental health piece because it doesn't get talked about enough.
Yeah.
This whole subject doesn't get talked about enough, but especially when people talk about it, they don't really address mental health as much. And for 1 second, I think when you're not well and you're bedbound 95% of the time,
Yep.
and you have fatigue like you wouldn't believe, and you just don't feel well,
Yep.
that alone can affect your mental health, right? Just because like you're like, I just want to feel better.
Yep.
But coupled with some of the neurological effects that can happen in a moldy place that typically also would be ridden with bacteria.
Yeah.
Now there's a whole other set of factors here that most people don't think about. I know you shared with us, suicidal ideation, right? And you hear this a lot actually because when you're searching for answers and everyone's telling you there are no answers, you're like, where else do you go but I'm dying or just kill me now, right?
Exactly.
But I don't know that people understand how real that is, like, and how fearful it is to be living in that situation, right? And
I could not
because
agree more.
because already people think we're crazy because of the fact that we got sick from mold, right? That's just a weird thing that people don't hear about. But then you have this layer of mental health obstacles that we experience, and people don't understand that either. I would love for you to share whatever you're comfortable with sharing just on how severe the mental health was and what really, like, looking back, because obviously when you're out of it and you're looking back, it's a different there's a different reflection piece that happens as
Yeah.
opposed to you're there going through it. And anything you're willing to share and reflect on would be so helpful and valuable.
Yeah. I think right now I'm a very open book because it's been about a year and a half, 2 years. And I think more than anything, what I've realized is I want there to be more awareness because again, there's people don't address it enough. And so it hurts me knowing that people still go through what I went through and still have that road to recovery. And so I think it was hard because obviously when I went off to Arizona State for college, school was everything to me. And so I was very excited and like I was just ready for it. And as a freshman in college, like you just want the college experience. You want to live in the dorms and you want to meet new people and and I was excited to excel in class and learn and get my medical degree. And I think that after that month of living in the dorm and getting so sick, it was like, I mean, I was a kid in high school where it was like, I didn't really have to study for tests and I would get A's just because it made sense to me. It was that thing where when a kid plays sports and they just automatically excel because they're athletic, that's how I was in school. It was like, it was my passion, it was my everything. And I dedicated myself to it for so long that when I got to Arizona State and I got sick, it was like I was studying every night for a test and I was getting an F on it. And I was like, I don't understand why I can't remember anything and why I'm so sick and why I'm bedridden. So I can't go out and I can't meet new people. I can't. And then it was a struggle of like, well, where do I belong? Because right now I've grown this hate for school, which I had such a passion for. And all these doctors are telling me that they don't know what's wrong with me. And so it was like this struggle of like, I kind of just had an identity crisis of like, school was my everything and now it's my nothing. I don't even want to be in school. And I ended up having to medically withdraw the second semester of my freshman year um, because it got so bad. But it was just more of you get so lost because you don't know what's happening. You feel like you don't know yourself because everything in your life has fallen apart. And I think that that's what the hardest part is. It's not just a cough or a fever. It affects you in a lot of ways that you wouldn't even know. And so I think that it definitely started out with depression because it was like, I didn't understand why it was happening. And then after a while, it was just like, after 6 months of it, it's after the physical symptoms subsided and like the memory loss and the fatigue and all that kind of started showing more. It was hard because it was like, how do I get that drive back? And no matter what I did, I couldn't get that drive back and that love for school back. And I couldn't get out of bed. and I didn't want to see people. I just wanted to lay in bed all day and sleep because I felt so physically and mentally unwell. And I think I just reached a point where I was like, it's been so long and nobody's giving me answers or help. So what hope is there? And thankfully, after a while, my mom was there for me through everything. And I'm so blessed to have her because she definitely helped me through this in more ways than I can explain. But she realized everything that I was going through. And I think when I went to her and I said, I need to withdraw from school because I was like, I I don't think I love it anymore. I am failing out. I'm going to lose all of my scholarships. It was hard for me. And she kind of realized that. And so she's the one that pulled me out of school. And she was like, it's okay. Like, you just have to take it slow. You have to take your time because, and I was very open to her at a point where I was like, I don't even want to exist anymore because I don't know where I belong and nobody will help me. And I was like, it makes you feel a certain kind of, I didn't want to use the word crazy, but like literally crazy because you think that you're making it all up in your head. And I was like, I don't want to think that I'm making this all up in my head. Like, I feel like there's something wrong. I'm sick. I'm struggling. I'm fatigued. But I don't know what it is. And she was like, that's what happens if you're exposed to mold. And so when I came back home that summer, I'd ended up transferring schools and I am back in school now. And I found an amazing doctor who's helped me through the recovery. But it was definitely when I come back home, I was automatically happier because I mean, I'm from Wyoming, so we have very clean air and very clean environments. And so it was hard because I had kind of snapped back into it where I was like, okay, well, I still want to exist, but I still don't know what's wrong with me. And so that's why every day is kind of like here and there because it's like the mental aspect still plays a big part in it of I'm never who I'm never who I used to be, but I'm still trying to get there at some point. And definitely like the memorization, memory loss, fatigue still affects me a lot. And so I think that that's the only thing that I've really struggled with since then. In facts of it's hard to be somebody who excels in something and then it gets taken away from you and you can't get it back. And I think that that's where I struggled with the most. Um, and as I've started to get better, I've started to learn new ways to cope with it and go about life. And so I think that definitely getting out of the mold situation and having people tell me that I'm not crazy definitely helped me with the suicidal fact of it because there was a great period of time where it was like I didn't want to be here, but it was hard to pull the plug. And that's where it was like I struggled a lot was it was like I still want to pursue all my dreams in my life, but I don't think I can do it if I feel like this. And so it was that fight between myself. And I think that when my mom kind of came to me and helped me with everything, it kind of made me realize, okay, like there is hope. I just have to give it time, no matter how much I struggle. So definitely a lot of ups and downs. And I think that mentally I struggled just as much as physically and with health stuff. But on the flip side, now I'm probably happier than I've ever been, even though I'm still not 100%, because I know that even though I was at the lowest point in my life, I came out of it. And I have certain people that have helped me get there, and especially my doctor. And that's where I'm just like, I wish that people had more awareness of it so that people didn't get in positions like this, because that's never a good position to be in. So,
Yeah. Uh, First off, thank you so much for sharing all of that. It takes a lot of guts and courage to come
yeah,
on here and be an open book and share some of the hardest and darkest moments of your life.
yeah.
So
No,
I greatly appreciate you for doing this and for just being so strong and courageous. It's not easy. You
yes.
are our future. You are our planet's future.
Mm-hmm.
You went to school to create amazing and wonderful things that we need, right?
Yeah.
You're we're not giving our future a fighting chance
Yeah.
as
I
a
think that's where I
civilization.
still struggle a lot is like When I did transfer schools, I ended up switching majors because my grades at Arizona State were too bad to get into medical school. And I kind of realized that. I said, they're going to look at this and say, I mean, why did she fail out her first year of college? Like, that's just, and so I kind of had to redirect my life completely. And I think that that's where I struggle a lot is I still have a deep love for the medical field. And if I could be a cardiothoracic surgeon, I 100% would. But I think that it was more of I needed to figure out what was feasible for me and what fit me and who I am now. And so I think after going through that again, like my academics aren't as great as they used to be, and I still struggle a little bit, but I'm in a sports business major and I still struggle here and there with being able to remember things and being able to get my work done and being able to stay awake in class and being able to, it's a very long-term struggle. And I think that people need to understand that if kids are in a moldy dorm for a year, I mean, I was only one for 2 months before my mom finally said, we're pulling you out of the dorm. And I think where I struggle a lot with it is when I went to Arizona State and I was like, I think you guys have mold. They were like, we don't. And I was like, I just kept going to them and I was like, there's something that's not right. And they said, we'll run some tests on the dorms, but we can't give you the results. We can just tell you if it's normal or abnormal. And they kind of came back to me and they were like, listen, we just found mildew in the air vents, and that's all we can really say. And I think where I struggled with it was like, I was never getting answers. And then we tried to get people outside, people to come in and test the dorm. And, they're very, well, if we come test in Arizona State's dorms, we're going to get sued. And so I got that and I was like, I understand that. And so when I finally moved out, it was hard because I saw all the kids in my dorm even still struggling and having health issues. And I look back and it's hard because nobody at Arizona State wanted to help me. It was always when I would call somebody, they would send me to this number and send me to this number, and they would make it harder on me to get answers or get switched dorms or get answers on what was happening. And I think that goes back to what you were saying, where you have to give your future a fighting chance. And so when they came to me and they just would push me down and say, you're wrong, you're crazy, there's no mold in our dorms, all that kind of stuff, I was kind of like, you guys are making it harder on me instead of just switching me dorms. And so at one point we had said, I mean, do we need to get a lawyer involved for me to switch dorms? Because as a freshman in college, I still wanted to have the freshman experience when you go to college, meet people in dorms, go to other people's rooms, like see new places, meet new friends and all that kind of stuff. And when we had said, do we need a lawyer involved to transfer me dorms? They said, well, if you get a lawyer to come at us, they were like, we have a building full of lawyers that's going to shut you down. You'll have no chance. And so I think that that's where I really connect when you say you have to give your future a fighting chance, was that it was so, I was already in a horrible mental, physical, and health state. And so when they didn't want to just help me a little bit or lend a leg up, it was even harder for me. And so I think that that's where I really struggled with being there, was I was like, you guys can't see the help I need, and I'm not asking for a lot from you guys. I just want to switch dorms, or I want answers, and no one will give them to me. So I think that that's where another struggle that I really faced with being there. And I think that if kids are exposed to mold like that in the dorms and they live there for a year, they come out in molds, people are not aware enough of mold, so they're going to face struggles for the rest of their lives, and they're going to think that it's normal. And I think that that's the hardest part, is that if I had to live like that was normal, like I did when I had just moved out of the dorm and when I was in the dorm, I don't think that I would be here today, because again, it's so mentally tough to understand why you're going through what you're going through when you're exposed to mold. So
It's just unacceptable.
yeah,
We cannot continue to go on like this. I'm gonna share my screen so people watching video will be able to see this. If you're on Apple Podcasts or something, you should find the video. So I created this website. It's called moldu.org, and it highlights mold in college dorms. 75% of Ivy League schools reporting mold on campus.
yeah,
Dorm mold has been reported in 42 of the 50 states across the country. When I say reported, I mean where there's actually news stories about it.
Yep.
So when you contacted Arizona State, I wouldn't know about that. But if it gets picked up in the news, then I would, right? But over
Yep.
225 cases of mold reported on campuses nationwide in the last 5 years. This is an interactive map. Just look at this.
It's crazy.
And
It's crazy.
here's Arizona State,
Yeah. That's the
2022.
article that came out. I think it was 6 months after I had moved out of the dorms. And I mean, it took everything in me to not walk into the office and be like, I told you so. Because I had told them for so long and they were like, no, 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 no. And so when that article came out, it was more of like I'm not crazy. Like there actually was mold and I was not just making it up. And so I think that that map is absolutely amazing. And I had seen your Instagram post where you had posted it, and it made my heart happy because it was like someone is trying to raise the awareness, not only regarding mold, but mold in dorms. Because when a kid is placed in a dorm, you don't really have much control over it. And so I think that that's where I struggled a lot. Was it was like my mom said, I wish that when we had saw the mold in the bathtub, or that it was a little bit of an older dorm, that we wouldn't have moved you in there. And I said I didn't really have much of an option, because you're already paying so much for school. And I was obviously on scholarship. So I was happy that I could even be there. And it was like, I think that that's one thing that I really struggle with still, is knowing that kids still have to go through this and schools just kind of like put it to the side. They think that it's not super important when it is 110% important.
Listen,
So
no university will be sending me a holiday card this year. But
that is perfectly fine. I cannot even tell you how much I appreciate what you're doing. And when my mom had told me and showed me your page and what you did, I was like, it put a smile on my face, because I was like, somebody else gets it and they want to help others. And I think that it's so hard because I've been trying to figure out how I can do that. But the world is so big and the medical world is so quick to, I don't want to say shut you down when you talk about mold, but people just don't know about it. So it's like they can't help you if they don't know. And I think that that's where it really made me happy for what, like, that you do what you do, because it raises awareness in regards to that, especially in my case where it was through a university. So,
the part that kills me about this is like, homes, right? There's a lot of issues with homes.
mhm.
And some people can't afford to fix that. And that's definitely a big part of the issue here.
Yeah,
But when it comes to homes, a lot of people can do something about it,
yeah,
right? They can make some changes to the home and improve things. In a dorm, you're beholden to reporting it to the university, who and I've looked at legal cases too with universities getting sued and them kind of putting stuff on their handyman that isn't trained and like not getting testing properly and like just violating every protocol and guideline out there. And
yeah,
that stuff too is like, I'm not going to call it criminal. It's born out of just this lack of education on how important this is. And they're just like trying to resolve problems as quickly as possible to get people to stop complaining. But
yeah,
we don't need that. What we need is people to understand how this impacts our health, and that when you have this problem, the goal isn't to make it go away as quickly as possible. The goal is to make sure that it goes away once and for all and doesn't come back, because it could hurt people.
exactly.
And that is what I'm fighting for. I joked around that I won't be getting any holiday cards from any universities anytime soon. To me, like, this is such a big problem that is like way under discussed.
I,
Um, 225 stories is not enough stories. We know there's more issues than that.
oh,
This
yeah,
is this is what they reported in the past few years. It's underreported. It's not being taken seriously. The whole issue itself isn't being taken as serious as it needs to be. Our government doesn't know much about it, and I've been working on that too through the foundation. Change the air. We we have, by hopefully by the time this airs, we will have announced the first, well, second really, federal mold bill to ever be introduced by the government that we helped influence and create.
That would be
Um,
amazing.
trying really, really hard. I am trying really hard. I wish success was overnight. It takes time. You know,
Right.
a lot of what is being accomplished on that mold bill is making sure the government's putting enough money in appropriations to study all the effects that come out of it, not just allergens and respiratory, because that's all they've studied so far. But
Yeah.
we need to understand more about the neurological impact, the pathogenic impact, how this affects the immune system, immune response. We need to understand how it affects our longevity.
Yep.
There's a lot at stake here, and you know, it's. I'm just so glad that you came on today to talk because, as you know, it's so timely with mold in universities and everything we're trying to do to create awareness around that. It is really really important for anyone
Yeah.
listening. You know, Taylor is our future, right? I have a 4-year old and a 7-year old. They're one day gonna go to college. Um, I'll have a lot more gray hair by then, I'm sure, but
Oh yeah. Yeah.
they're going to go to college and they need a safe place to go to college, right? We can't poison our kids and we can't stand for that.
Yeah.
We need to leave this world in a better place than we found it.
I agree.
And you know, and we have an opportunity to do that. And Taylor, you are helping me right now by being courageous and putting yourself out there and sharing your story. I
I'm
really
happy.
thank you for that.
I'm very happy I can. I think that I really enjoyed being able to have this opportunity because like again, I told my mom this morning, I was like, I think it's just it puts me, I don't want to say at peace of mind, but it just makes me happy that I can share my story to try and help others or make more others more aware of how much mold is an issue. Because I think that's where I struggle is the people are just kind of shrug it off when I was say I was exposed to mold and they're like, oh, what does that mean? And I'm like, that was probably one of the darkest and most horrible times in my life. And nobody understands why, because there's no awareness around it. So I think that's why I really enjoyed this opportunity because it kind of gives me a chance to explain what happened to me and make people more aware. And I absolutely love what you're doing because, again, it allows people to share their stories and make others more aware and make it known that it's not just one or two people, it's a lot of people that it happens to. And I think that that's what I really enjoy about this. So thank you. I appreciate it.
You know, there's 50,000 kids that go to some of the largest schools. When we think about that and multiply that by the amount of campuses across the country, it's a lot of kids
Yeah.
and a lot of them are living in not great conditions.
Yeah.
And that is not the college experience that they need to have.
Yeah.
Going out and meeting friends and having fun and learning, that's what they should be exposed to, not mold.
Yeah. I think that's where I really struggle was again, like, I'm not expecting to be in a beautiful dorm. And I'm like, but the conditions that I was in and the conditions that a lot of students are in is like, it could like, again, like you said, is unacceptable. Like there needs to be a change. And I think that that's where I really struggled with it was no university is trying to make that change. And it's hard because it's going to keep happening and kids are going to keep getting sick. And I know that kids have probably went through exactly what I went through. And I really hope that at some point it can change and that doesn't happen anymore. But I think that's where kind of, I think that's where it's kind of sad to me is that I know that even though I'm out of it, there's other people still going through it, whether it's in dorms or houses or apartments or whatever it is. There's still people going through it and people don't know enough about it to make a change. So,
It's so desperately needed. And I know we can't change the past for you. I always try to look at challenges I face in life, you know, and how that affects my mental outlook. And mental health, as you know, is a big part of this, as you shared. You have a bright future ahead of you. And while I still have an identity crisis every day, by the way, so while you may have not figured out your full road of what you're going to do, I hope that this empowers you to, you know, just take matters into your own hands in some aspect and, learn and grow from this. Sometimes some of our biggest challenges in life, our biggest life setbacks, give us the biggest lessons and catapult us to new places that we just never would have gone. And I hope that this happens for you.
I completely agree. I think that after being out of it for a year and a half, 2 years now, it's kind of, I've realized, I mean, I always live by the saying, everything happens for a reason. And even though I never want to go through that again, I'm glad that I did, because it was definitely something that helped me grow as a person and understand, and made me want to help people more. Because I mean, like I said, every experience is what makes a person grow and become who they are. And I think that definitely it's helped me, even though it's completely changed the route of my life. I mean, I'm happy as ever, and I love where I'm at now. And so, I mean, I can't really complain anymore about it. I still have issues here and there, but at the end of the day, it is what it is, you just kind of have to get through it. So.
And do me a favor, thank your mom for me for everything she's doing, not only to support you, of course, but just the awareness of just the fact that she knew about mold and she took it seriously, got you out of there in 2 months. I know she's going to probably share this story. She's in the medical field. This is how we pave forward. So, there's not often a gold trophy at the end of the day, but I want to thank any single person that helps amplify the message of how this affects us. So please thank your mom for me.
Yes, I will, of course. And like I said, I was so happy because I came home one day from work and she was like, I found this super cool guy and he focuses on mold. And she's like, I think you should go on his podcast. And I was like, I love it. I'll do it. I was like, anything to help people be aware. And like I told her, I said, I never want people to feel bad for me or feel pity. I just want people to understand how serious it is. Because again, like you said, like people don't understand how serious it is and how much the change needs to happen. Otherwise, it's going to keep happening. So,
in the wise words of Deepak Chopra, we will go extinct as a species if we do not start taking air quality more serious.
I could not agree more.
Yeah. So, Taylor, I want to really thank you again for being on here today, sharing your story, being vulnerable. There's just thank you from the bottom of my heart. Before I let you go, I do want to ask you one final question, which is, what if you could offer just one piece of advice to somebody who might be going through a similar challenge that you went through, whether it's in a dorm or not, what would that piece of advice be?
I think more than anything, and I know that when you're in the situation, it's hard, is stay strong, because especially with what I went through mentally, I'm happy every day that I didn't let the horrible thoughts through. Even though it was one of the hardest times of my life, is stay strong. You will find people that will support you and will believe in you. And I think that definitely finding a doctor, which is not easy, finding a doctor that specializes in mold, because they will help you and will help you understand why you feel the way you feel and what's happening to you. But more than anything, I say just stay strong, even though it's hard, because there is a light at the end of the tunnel. And when you're in this situation, it's hard to believe that. Trust me, I know. But I'm glad that I continued to try to look at that light at the end of the tunnel, because now I'm happier than ever, and I love my major. I love my new school. I'm happy. So
that's awesome.
I just try to, I know it's hard, but try to get through it, and you will get there one day. So
thank you. Thank you so much. And if there's anything I could ever do to help, please let me know. And of course, mold in universities is near and dear to my heart, and anything that I can ever do to help share and amplify what's going on and what happened to you and make sure it doesn't happen to others, I'm here for you.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And again, thank you so much for doing what you do and having this platform to share and doing everything that you're doing.